The atmosphere on the set that day was so busy. The studio lights are on brightly, the crew is pacing back and forth with headsets stuck to their ears, and the director continues to arrange detail by detail so that each scene goes perfectly. Zhao Jinmai sat on a long chair near the property table, still wearing his character's costume. The girl lowered her head, staring at the already shabby script in her hands. Although his face looked calm, he actually felt tired. Filming from the very morning was a real drain of energy. Meanwhile, on the other side of the room, Zhang Linghe watched him silently. His sharp eyes followed Jinmai's every move. He knew the girl rarely complained, but her overly focused attitude sometimes made her forget to give her time to rest. "He should take a break," Lingi murmured quietly, barely audible to anyone. When the director finally gave the signal for a break, the mood immediately changed. Several other actors rushed to the snack table, some chose to rest in loungers, and some went out for some fresh air. Jinmai was still in place, his eyes fixed on the script. Lingi took a deep breath, then approached her with slow steps. His heart was pounding strangely, as if this wasn't just a simple invitation. For him, this is an opportunity. "Jinmai," Lingi called out in a soft voice. The girl turned her head, slightly surprised to find Lingi standing beside her. What's wrong?" he asked with a polite smile. Lingi scratched his nape, trying to contain his nervousness. "You're not tired? I can see you haven't really rested yet." Jinmai chuckled a little. "I'm fine. After all, there are still many scenes later. I have to be ready." "But rest is also part of the preparation," Lingi replied quickly. He then added in a quieter tone, "If you want, we can take a break outside. Just the two of us." The words just slide. For a moment, the air around them seemed to stop. Jinmai fell silent, looking at him fixedly. The invitation sounded simple, but there was something behind Lingi's tone that made her heart tremble. "What do you mean, both?" I asked, half hesitating, half curious. Lingi smiled faintly, trying to cover up his awkwardness. "Yeah, come out for a minute. Breathe fresh air. Let's not get too tense. The place is quiet. I know a good spot near the small garden behind the studio." Jimmy paused for a moment. Usually he is not the type who likes to be alone with his co-stars in the middle of filming, for fear of causing gossip. But Lingi's sincere gaze made it hard to resist. There was something in the look in the man's eyes. Warm care, concern and sincerity. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right." But only for a moment. A relieved smile broke on Lingi's face. "Sure. Come on." Unknowingly, he offered his hand to help Jinmai stand up. The girl hesitated for a second before finally accepting the helping hand. The brief touch makes both feel a faster heart rate than usual. They walked towards the studio exit. Their steps felt light, although in each other's hearts there was a small storm. Behind the crowd of filming, Zhang Linghe had just taken the first step to bring himself closer to Zhao Jinmai. And for Jinmai, that simple invitation somehow feels special. The afternoon air was welcoming as soon as they came out of the filming room. The sun leans to the west. Its rays penetrate the cracks of high-rise buildings in the studio complex. The sounds of the crew were heard further and further, replaced by the rustling of leaves in the wind. Lingi directed a step towards the small garden he had just mentioned. The place is a bit hidden, rarely passed by people. There is a wooden bench under a large tree. It is quite comfortable to rest. Jinmai glanced around, making sure no one else was watching them. "Are you sure we won't get caught here?" he asked in a half-whisper. Lingi smiled soothingly. "Take it easy. At best, if anyone sees it, they'll think we're just discussing a script. After all, you need fresh air, right?" Jinmai sat on a bench, putting his script on his lap. He sighed with relief. "It's much quieter here." Lingi sat down beside him, keeping a polite distance. However, even if it was only a few centimeters, the man's presence made the atmosphere feel different. There is a warmth that is difficult to explain. "It may sound corny," Lingi said suddenly, But I'm happy to be sitting like this with you. It was like a break from a world that was too noisy. Jinmai turned his head, slightly surprised by the honesty of his words. You can always say sweet yes, Lingi. Not sweet, he argued with a chuckle. I'm just being honest. The simple conversation made Jinmai's heart sizzle. He looked down, pretending to be busy with the script, when in fact, he longed to look longer at Lingi's face, which looked so sincere. Growing familiarity the next day, a new habit was formed. Whenever there was a break in filming, Lingi always took Jinmai out for a while. Not always to the same park, sometimes to a small balcony on the second floor, sometimes just sitting in the back of the building by a noisy but quiet generator. Jinmai felt awkward at first. However, more and more often, he begins to get used to it, even silently looking forward to the moment. They share simple snacks, joke about funny scenes that go wrong, and sometimes just sit quietly enjoying the sky. Surprisingly, being silent with Lingi didn't feel boring. It calms down. However, the togetherness began to attract the attention of people around. I think Lingi and Jinmai are getting closer, whispered one of the crew to his colleague. Love the location, maybe? The other one with a grin. That little rumor hasn't come out to the public yet, but it's enough to make Jinmai a little worried. He doesn't want his professionalism to be questioned. One afternoon, as they were sitting together, Jinmai said in a cautious tone, Lingi, you're not worried about people misunderstanding? Lingi turned his head, looking at him seriously. If they get it wrong, that's their business. The important thing is that I know my intentions. I just want to make sure you don't put too much pressure on yourself. This made the Jin silent. There is a sincerity that makes him unable to argue. When it rains one day, the sky was overcast and heavy rain poured down on the set. All the crew was busy moving the equipment so that it would not be damaged. The atmosphere was chaotic, but in the midst of the chaos, Lingi kept looking for Jinmai. He found her standing by the window, staring at the rain with a gloomy face. Do you like the rain? Asked Lingi as he approached. Sometimes, said Jin. But the rain also makes the atmosphere sad. Lingi stood beside him, staring at the falling water. Then let me make it warm. Jinmai turned his head with raised eyebrows. How? Lingi took out a small thermos from his bag. I brought warm tea. Want to try? The girl couldn't help but smile. You are always ready. They sat in a corner of the room, sharing warm tea from a thermos. Occasionally their hands touch when handing each other small glasses. That brief touch leaves a warm trail that lasts longer than the rain outside. Amidst the silence, Lingi said quietly, I'm happy to be able to share a simple moment like this with you. Jinmai just looked down, but his cheeks were red. The gossip that spreads their familiarity can finally no longer be completely hidden. Some photos of Lingi and Jinmai together on the set began to spread on social media. Some praise, some speculate, some sneer. Look, Lingi and Jinmai don't seem to be just co-workers. Wow, if it were true, this couple would have made the drama even worse. But there are also those who write, well, don't let personal relationships interfere with their professionalism. The comments also reached Jinmai's ears. He began to feel uneasy. On the one hand, he enjoyed being with Lingi. But on the other hand, she was afraid that her image as a serious young actress would be tarnished. Lingi realized the uneasiness. One night, he dared to speak the truth. Jinmai, he said, I know you're worried about gossip, but I promise I won't do anything to hurt you. I just want you to know, I'm on your side. Jinmai's eyes softened. For the first time, he realized that Lingi's feelings might be deeper than he thought.